Today, I want to talk about how to get over a fear of embarrassment and intimidation when you're speaking another language. First up, I want to reassure you that anytime you feel this, it's completely normal because speaking in another language instantly puts you in a position of vulnerability. We are being brave and taking a risk every single time that we open our mouths and say something in a language that is not one we are fully fluent and confident in. And that alone is just not applauded enough, and it really should be, because it's an act of vulnerability and it's an act of bravery, and that's really good. And if we're already doing that, then there's typically a lot that we've overcome to get to that point. So, woo! But if you're not there yet and you're still here and you're in that position where you can't yet speak because you do feel embarrassed, you do feel intimidated, we're going to dig through some of the reasons why that might be and how we can work to overcome it. This isn't me suggesting a quick fix or a hack for something that could be deeply personal. And if that's the case, then absolutely skip this video, get the support that you need elsewhere. First up then, perfectionism, and specifically a fear of making language mistakes. It doesn't matter whether it's tripping up over pronunciation or saying the wrong word or completely fumbling a verb tense. A mistake is a mistake is a mistake. It all comes down to the same fear. And the thing that is most crazy about this to me is that we make mistakes all the time in our own languages. We just don't notice them as much as when we're speaking another. Genuinely, just think for a moment about a recent conversation in your own language where you've had to pause to recall a word or backtrack to correct yourself or just simply go blah, 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 and start again. It happens all the time. And so when it happens in another language, that's not necessarily a sign that we are not yet good enough at that language. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about, nothing to feel intimidated of, nothing to be fearful of. It happens purely because speaking is instant and we don't always have the time to purely, fully articulate what we want to say and get it sounding exactly as we'd want it to sound. And I know you might be thinking, oh yes, but my mistakes in German or Korean are completely different because they mean I will literally not be understood. But here's the truth. You won't be understood if you say nothing either, because that's the alternative. So how do you get over fear of making language mistakes? Lean in, because this one's really good. You make more mistakes. Groundbreaking. I know. So when you make more mistakes in the language, and then as a result of that, you know that nothing bad is going to happen, that you still might even be understood, then it's okay. You know that you can safely make a mistake again another time. And for years now, I've recommended mistake goals as a way to help get better at this. And I still do, because it is still such a useful tool to have when you're working on this and when this is something that really bugs you. I'll pop a link above my head or in the description so you can have a little look. Fear of judgment. It's not just that instant response that can get us feeling, it's also the fear of maybe a longer lasting judgment of you as a person, which, I mean, people are going to judge you regardless. Judgments are like deep wired into our brain as a sort of safety mechanism. Can I trust that person? Are they about to stab me? Like, we just have them. So regardless of your language, even before you open your mouth, people have already made judgments about you. And don't shoot the messenger. And this is what it really comes down to. When it comes to getting over that fear of judgment, it's just reminding ourselves that we are going to get judged either way. And yes, what comes out of our mouth and how we speak may influence that judgment, but we're getting judged either way. So, for example, I met someone recently and I wasn't fully sure of what was happening in the conversation. And so rather than try and interject or try and translate every single thing going on, I sort of sat back for a while and understood what I could and added in things when I could. But then found out that they thought, oh, she's shy. She's really quiet. No, I just don't really know what's going on. And so people are going to judge you anyway, regardless of if you try and speak too much or try and not speak enough. It's going to happen. So we can Let go of that fear of judgment. People will judge. It's okay, the world will still turn. Fear of offending. So when you learn a new language, it's not just words, but it's the cultural set of etiquette that you need to be acquiring too. And when we don't necessarily feel fluent yet in that side of things, it can be really easy to hold back and say less or not want to speak at all because we're worried about offending. So how do we get over this? Well, much like a fear of judgment, knowing that there's always the potential that you might offend is kind of helpful. Gets us halfway there to feeling good about this one, but it's a start. And besides, if you're here and you're listening to me say this, I know that you're not going to be someone who is offending someone on purpose or outright or out of any malicious intent. I know that if you're here, you care about language learning and therefore you have good intentions with it. And that means I know that if you do offend someone, it's unintentional. And you can know that too, that if it happens, it's unintentional. So know how to apologize, be ready for that if it happens, you can at least say sorry with a level of fluency that feels good. That said, to help avoid getting into those sort of risky situations in the first place where you might offend, it can be really helpful to build up on that cultural etiquette and that knowledge beforehand. So reading up on what to expect, how to greet people, how to say goodbye, what level of formality to use, all of those little things that could be a trigger for causing offense, then we can be building up our knowledge around the language before we're ready for the interaction. Negative past experience. Sometimes the things that we fear haven't actually happened yet, and this can, sometimes, but not always, make it easier to write them off as just a fear of something that is unlikely or improbable to happen. But when you have actually experienced something, then it feels like it is very much a potential future reality as well, because that improbability just became probable. So how can you get over a negative past experience? Well, let's say that you did try to previously speak someone else's language and they shot you down, or they embarrassed you, they ignored you, and it just didn't end well. By the way, all of these have happened to me multiple times. And it's important to know that these are often the minority, but what typically happens is they take up the majority of our brain space. When we think back to how things went with the language, we don't remember all the times that actually we said thank you in the shop and the person said you're welcome. We remember the one time where we said thank you and they said, and grunted at us. And we thought, oh, I got it wrong. Oh no, I must have done something bad. No, we forget all the 10 times that someone said, you're welcome. So what we need to do here to get over those negative past experiences, or to at least help us to get over them, is to remember and to be very intentional with writing a list or thinking for ourselves in our head in some way of times when actually it did go well, of times when you had a positive past experience with the language, when maybe you made someone laugh. Maybe you understood something and you laughed and you had a good moment. Maybe when you shared something with someone and it went well. When you said thank you and they said you're welcome. Like, it could be something so seemingly tiny, but when they all add up, suddenly we realize that actually the negative past experiences maybe aren't that big after all. Maybe aren't that significant after all. Like I say, this is general language advice. If you're thinking, but the negative past experiences for my languages are huge, then this isn't necessarily the advice. And maybe like you need different support to what I can offer you here right now today. Performance pressure. Speaking another language can feel like you're up on stage. There is one spotlight, it is on you, and everyone is looking. And actually, it is often a bit of a performance. That's what helps us to communicate better. When we can move past those feelings of embarrassment, we can be more expressive with our body language and our gesture, and we can really communicate and sort of perform in another language sometimes. But whether you feel like you're exaggerating everything or you're just minimizing everything, when you don't quite feel like yourself, the performance pressure can really creep in. So how do we get over that performance pressure when we're speaking another language? It will sound like the last thing that you want to do, but hear me out. Embrace the potential embarrassment. Someone else laughing at you doesn't hurt as much if you're the one to laugh first. And this isn't about being self-deprecating. That's not what I'm saying. It's about just recognizing those potential moments and being able to laugh with them rather than feel laughed at. Allow yourself some self-compassion. Give yourself a bit of freedom to make those mistakes that will inevitably happen, and just see how it goes and see if that changes things, that, your attitude to approaching a speaking situation. Oh, and to go back to the stage metaphor, there's one more thing you can do: practice. You wouldn't get up on that stage with that spotlight without learning your lines if you're an actor, or practicing the piano if you're a pianist. You just wouldn't. And so why do we, as language learners, expect that we can plunge ourselves into those situations with minimal or zero practice and have that be the practice? That's intense. That is a huge ask for yourself. So practice first can be really beneficial to make that performance pressure dwindle away. But how do you get that practice? Because if the idea of speaking and feeling embarrassed are really co-connected, then chances are you don't necessarily want to get your speaking practice from speaking with others from day one. You need a bit of build-up. You need a bit of a warm-up to the practice with other people, right? And so that's when having a solo speaking habit, having some practice that you create for yourself, is hugely beneficial. That is why I made Promptly. That's one of the things that this is all about. So with Promptly, when you subscribe to Promptly, every single week you get a brand new writing or speaking prompt. You get suggestions for how to use that at different levels, and you get a video walkthrough so that you're not left in the dark. You can be fully ready to go. You've got the full inspiration that you need to produce something in that language that is right for the level that you're at. And I've just added a bonus little workshop on self-review. So once you've done your practice, you actually will have the tools that you need to review that practice, to get the feedback that you need with self-compassion. We're not just going to be critical, rah, 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 you're terrible. That's not how we go. That's not how we do this. And then you have this practice, you have this review that you can do from the practice. It is just a fuller, rounder, much more less embarrassing way to get practice, so that when you have people stood in front of you, you're ready to go. Because if you wait until someone is there, you're doing it wrong. And that's where Promptly comes in. So if you want to know more, you can join at the link in the description, and I'm here to answer your questions too. If you have any questions, share in the comments. You can email me, lindsay@doeslanguages.com, and I look forward to speaking with you very soon. All right, and I look forward to seeing you in Promptly. Woo! Let's write more, let's speak more, and with that, we will get fluent promptly. All right, have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are, and I will see you very soon. Thank you. Bye.